I'm going to dive straight in. The title of my very short presentation is Hybrids and Crossbreeds, Mongrel Media, and it's subtitled Why We Shouldn't Throw the Baby Out with the Bathwater. And that's because today I'm going to talk to you actually about some kind of old media. Tom Loosemore began today's events by talking about books and the printing press. I'm not going to go quite far that back into history, but I am going to talk about a media that most people think is kind of more or less sort of outdated and out of vogue, which is radio. And I'm going to try and talk about how, kind of radio, when it's used in combination with what we sort of think of as more kind of modern digital media, can create new hybrid forms which allow us to reach audiences we wouldn't be able to reach before, or do things that we wouldn't be able to do with either the digital media by itself or the radio by itself. Just a bit about me. An artist and curator, and as you can tell by my accent, I'm not from round here. But I was living for the last 4 years in the UK, in the northeast of England. And before that, I established Tate's webcasting program. Just a couple of shots from the festival I used to direct, the AV Festival in Newcastle. This is some of the work that we've commissioned. You probably know some of the artists. It's just to give you a flavour of the type of sort of interactive art and electronic art that we were working with. And I bring up this slide just to sort of, if you want, kind of presage the fact that whilst we were an electronic arts festival and it was our remit to try and kind of bring to the audiences of the Northeast new and exciting trends in technologically mediated art, we also considered it our role to look back into history for inspiration as well. So this is one of the works that we commissioned for the 2008 AV Festival, which was a recreation of a work from 1966 by John Cage, which used very, very domestic media, as you can see on the slide there, in combination with what at the time was very cutting-edge technology, photoelectric cells. And in terms of my own work as an artist, here's just a couple of shots from installations that I've produced. And I bring this up because as artists, Radio Kwali are as much about building things and testing things as we are about putting kind of pretty objects in galleries. And what we try and do is build radios, build radio transmitters and radio receivers in all of the locations that we go to, so we can kind of test the radio space, if you want, kind of listen to the air using these little radios that we build. This is kind of the mantra, if you want, that kind of runs through a lot of the work that I'm going to talk to you about today, and also, generally speaking, I think the work that I try and kind of produce either as a curator or an artist, it's not always about the technology, it's often about the idea. And a friend of mine, Peter Kirk, said quite pithily, don't mistake the tools for the purpose, and I think it's a quite good thing to remember. If anybody ever doubted that radio was a powerful medium, they need look no further than this broadcast here. We should have some sound, but we don't. Sound, guys? Guys, sound? No? Okay, no sound. Okay, so this is War of the Worlds from 1938. You probably all know the famous broadcast. This is Orson Welles in his heyday. This broadcast was a landmark because it was styled on newscasts of the era. And so when people were listening to the broadcast, they actually believed that the events in this kind of fictional tale were unfolding. As you know, the broadcast was based on the H.G. Wells book War of the Worlds. It was about a Martian invasion of Earth. And Orson Welles and his co-writer Howard Koch basically transplanted the story into kind of modern day New York State and told a story as if it was unfolding in real time. Now in 1938 this was a highly innovative use of radio. The sort of historical geeks amongst you will know it wasn't a new technique. The BBC had actually pioneered a similar style of kind of, if you want, docu-fiction a few years earlier, but this was certainly the first time it had been used on such a mass scale. And the consequence of this is that a lot of people believed that this play was really happening. So you can see the front page of the New York Times there. People believed the Earth was being invaded by aliens. And there's another shot. In 2008, the festival that I directed, Recreate a War of the Worlds, this time transposing the action to Middlesbrough. And this is just a shot of that. So in terms of, kind of other projects where radio, kind of might be the kind of most appropriate media, I just wanted to tell you about a project that my artist group did in Antarctica. We had the opportunity of sending one of our members down to Antarctica in 2006 to stay here at this lovely little base. This is a South African base. And what we decided to do was to build the South African base their own radio station. Now you might ask, well, why radio and why Antarctica? Well, this is a perfect case of kind of finding the right media for the right location. The internet connection at the South African base is 1K. I'm not sure how many of you are kind of geeks in the audience, but you know that's not very fast. So we couldn't exactly set up an internet radio station where the researchers could interact, kind of with YouTube and MySpace. We kind of needed to go back to basics, and we also wanted something that would cross a large geographical area so that the people who were listening to the radio station, i.e. the audience being the scientists and the researchers, could listen to it on the job. And on the job in Antarctica, obviously a wee bit different to on the job here in West Brom, means going out to places like this. So here's the audience listening to their radio station out on the job. They sort of described it a bit like, kind of listening to radio in the car. And here's them listening to the radio station back at the base. Another kind of use of this sort of notion of hybridizing media was a project that Radio Qualia produced a while back in 2000, where we designed some internet software way back before, kind of YouTube had taken off, which enabled internet users to program a television station in Amsterdam. So basically what we were trying to do is to kind of get people to use the computer to program a real television station. This is a television station that is broadcasting in right across Amsterdam, and everybody who has a TV receives this station. So for 9 days, internet users basically logged on to this particular website, and they collaboratively programmed the television schedule. They uploaded their own content, they linked to kind of content that was out there on the web, and then they used a chat room basically to kind of organize the schedule. It was a completely unmoderated process. The only thing we did was remove kind of hate speech and kind of sort of extremely kind of inappropriate content. But otherwise, the internet users themselves were responsible for the schedule. So if there was a time slot, a kind of prime time slot that was popular, they had to negotiate, kind of amongst one another about who got that slot. And we also broadcast some of the negotiations from the chat room on the TV station so that the watchers of the TV station could see what was going on. So this is the software here. And I wanted to finish by showing a sort of a slightly kind of more unusual use of technology, which is how we can use a very old technology, radio, to hear possibly the oldest broadcast that we could imagine hearing. And that's broadcast from the stars and the planets themselves. Anyone who knows a little bit about physics knows that stars are basically broadcasters. The sun is a broadcaster. It's transmitting radio waves. And we can use the technology of radio to receive those radio waves and then very simply turn them into sound. So just in case you've ever wondered what the sun sounds like, let's have a listen. Maybe it could be a bit louder even. We've got a very low audio level, but basically what we're listening to here is the sun during a solar storm. And when there's a solar storm on the sun's surface, you can hear these kind of rapid increases of radio noise like this. So this is basically kind of an experience of the sun that we couldn't have without using the intermediary technology of radio. What our group Radio Qualia have then done, and this is Jupiter,